Hey Artnerds, I've got another Copic marker tutorial for you guys. Today we are doing another lineless marker style. So I have here a really cute sketch of Kara that was sketched in with pink color Eno lead. And if you guys are looking for a more step-by-step colored lead tutorial, you guys can check out the cards in the description to find more links. So I am starting with a really light blue to color in the shadows on her underdress and on her socks, as well as on the shadows of her eyes. Now I'm going in with a slightly darker blue. We're aiming for something really cute, very anime inspired, and very high contrast. And then I blended it out using a blender marker. And as you guys know, when I'm doing alcohol marker blending, I usually like to blend out with the color that came before it. So now I'm swatching out some of the reds and some of the teals that I have in my marker collection. I was thinking having her wear red, teal, and then have an acorn cap for her hat would be really cute. So now that I have my colors picked, I'm starting in on the skin tone, and I'm using one of my favorite skin tone triads, E00, E51, and then E21 with tea rose and flesh as our sort of blush colors. And then I think I have iridescent mauve selected there as my shadow color. And if you guys are wondering who this little cutie is, this is Kara, the main character from my comic 7-inch Kara. You guys can either read it in print. Volume 1 is available and for sale. You can even request it at your local library, or you can read it for free at 7inchkara.com or 7inchkara.tumblr.com. I am currently working on finishing up Volume 2, so Kara is on a bit of a hiatus, but I have some really great guest comics scheduled for you guys. So now that I've basically finished her skin, I'm going in and I'm adding shadows and blending out the shadows on her dress. And if you guys would like to see the finished piece, you can head on over to my Instagram at instagram.com/natosoup and check it out. I am also using Oriental to add some additional shadows to her skin and to add in freckles, and then I am blending it out using E51. Now I'm coloring in her eyes. Oh, and adding some more freckles using E13 Suntan. And I'm coloring in her eyes and hair with what looks like YR14. It's an orangey brown, and I really like using it as a base color for Kara's hair and eyes. And then working darker from there. So when you're using alcohol markers, you want to start with a color a little bit lighter than what you're aiming for your mid-tone, because it's always easier to go darker, but it's often quite difficult to go lighter with alcohol markers. Because they're a translucent medium, they're great for layering, but you can't necessarily take away layers so easily. You can use the blender marker to try and blend the color back to a lighter color, but I find that you get kind of like bubbling and uneven, patchy color, so I don't like doing that. I'm using E79 for the darkest shadows on her hair. I apologize for the video quality on this one. I recorded this after I was away for 6 weeks teaching classes in Louisiana, and believe it or not, I've forgotten a lot about recording in that time period. And I went in with a dark red and I colored the inside of her mouth. Now I'm coloring in the acorn cap. I would bet I'm using E49 for that one, although it's hard to see. And probably going over it with E79. I've switched over to a Blick Studio brush marker. I really like those as well to start in with her shoes and the tassels on her dress. I went with rust and teal because Carrie doesn't normally wear very saturated or very bright colors. She is a Lilliputian after all, and being able to hide is important. And if you wear bright, flashy colors, you're sure to be noticed by humans. So, as you guys may have noticed, I am coloring in sections. I find that that helps reduce streaking. And I'm coloring this in my Blick Studio sketchbook, which is one of my favorite sketchbooks, and I love doing marker pieces in it. This paper is really thirsty, however, so you may find that it drains your markers dry, but I find that it is really great for doing super blendy marker art. So, it's one of my favorite things to marker on. And now that the first layer has had a chance to evaporate, I'm going in with 007 and doing a second layer. And I believe 007 is terracotta, but I might be wrong. And I have loads of tutorials and a couple of reviews of the Blick Studio brush markers. If you guys are interested in checking them out, they're one of my top picks as a Copic marker alternative. Now I'm going in with, and that is probably dark umber, but it is a very dark red, and it goes quite nicely with the terracotta that we just applied. And you can see that I've also added red to her shoes as a bit of an accent. So rust and teal are almost contrasting colors. Rust is an orangey red and teal is a bluish green. So they're pretty much on opposite ends of the color wheel, and I thought they would make for really great colors for Cara to wear. So generally when I'm doing marker art, I work from light to dark. That means light objects to darker objects, and I work from large to small, larger objects to smaller objects. So I colored in her dress before I colored in the piece of thread that she's wearing as a choker. And I find that that helps prevent bleeding and unintended blending of the colors. So now that I've finished markering, I'm actually inking this piece with some new favorite brush pens. These are Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens. They are actually alcohol marker proof and waterproof, at least according to my testing. I'd have to double test. But they are water-based pigment ink brush pens, and you can ink with them before you apply the marker. But since I was going for a lineless style, I opted to marker it first and then go over it in bits and pieces with the brush pens. And I tried to use colors that I thought would suit the areas that I'm inking. So I used a brown brush pen to ink areas that had Cara's skin. And I used a black brush pen to ink her hair. Since her hair is so dark, I found that the brown brush pen just wasn't really showing up. And using different colored brush pens can be a great way to change up your marker art to make it a little bit more lively. And you should be able to find these Tombow Fudenosuke pens at most stores. I picked these up at my local plaza, but you guys can check the description below. I'll have links to all the products mentioned in this video so you guys can find them. And my preference when inking is using brush pens or Fude pens. They have a very small brush-like tip, and they have a lot of flex and a lot of give. It does take a little bit of practice if you're used to using fixed width pens like technical pens or ballpoint pens, but I think the end results are great, and I find that they're actually much easier on my hands. And I used the brown to ink her dress as well, since the color in this piece is predominantly kind of a reddish brown color. I thought the brown would kind of help tie everything together, and I do apologize. I do apologize that my head keeps getting in the shot. Now I'm adding white highlights using an Uni Signo white gel pen. This is one of my favorite gel pens. Alright, so the markers are finished. Now I'm going to cut it out and mount it. So I'm using a piece of craft paper, printer paper, and it's got like kind of a nice sort of rough texture to it. And I thought that would make a great base for this piece, since 7-inch Kara is very nature inspired and has a lot of natural scenes, and Kara herself has a lot of nature influence. I thought something a little bit more natural would look really good. So I went digging through my collection of chiyogami and cut papers and found some things that I thought would really suit this little illustration. And I'm using a Tombow tape runner to adhere everything together. And this is so much easier for me than using glue. So here we have the finished piece. I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful, useful, and informative. Maybe you even found it inspiring. I do apologize for lighting issues. And I hope you guys will check out some of my other alcohol marker tutorials here on this channel. I have several to choose from, many of which are aimed at alcohol marker beginners. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Bye guys!